Welcome to Tyndrum, and in particular Upper Tyndrum Station. Tyndrum is famous for being the smallest settlement in Great Britain to have two railway stations. So I'm going to spend the day, or some of the day, looking around at Tyndrum. And I will of course explain why Tyndrum, which has a resident population of under 200, does have two train stations. Over the course of its life, the station has had three different names: Tyndrum, Tyndrum Upper and Upper Tyndrum. I'll explain all about that in a minute or two. Train from Alleg approaching. Another hill start from here. Tyndrum Lower. This was the first station at Tyndrum, opened in 1873 by the Callander and Oban Railway, and it was a terminus. They were aiming, of course, for Oban and the riches of taking passengers to and from the ferry port and the town, but they ran out of money. And at first people laughed at the Callander and Oban building a railway as far as a little village called Tyndrum, with very little traffic prospects, which is why they persisted in raising money to extend the line to Oban. And initially the station was just called Tyndrum, and it had sidings, of course, being a terminal station. The Callander and Oban was essentially operated by the Caledonian Railway, with its own company secretary, a guy called Anderson. And Tyndrum very quickly became an important railhead for sheep, because hitherto sheep were taken by drovers to markets at places like Glasgow and Falkirk. The Caledonian became part of the LMS. The upper station, being part of the North British Railway, became part of the LNER, and it wasn't until British Railways took over that they renamed the two stations Upper and Lower in the early 1950s. My little Garmin device shows that we're just over 240 metres above sea level. I'm going to take a reading at the upper station later just to make a comparison. But there's a train due to Oban in an hour, and in the meantime I'm going to have a walk. See you later. As soon as you come out of the station, you see a fingerboard pointing to the West Highland Way. I must have driven through Tyndrum hundreds of times, and I've never really explored the place, so today is a bit of an interesting day out for me. And quite close to the station you can hire chalets, and I've looked at the price list and they're quite reasonable, I think. They'd be handy for train spotters. The holiday park sells drinks, ice cream and essentials. Please define. So the West Highland Way goes along the sides of this river, with a caravan park on the other side. You can see the upper station on the hill where the radio telecoms mast is. November's one of my favourite months because the colours are beautiful and there's hardly anybody around. And not far away from Tyndrum you get a really wonderful view of Ben More. Big hill it means, Ben More. Always keen to encourage tourist travel, the Callander and Oban Railway arranged with one of the hotels in Crianlarich to organise guided walking expeditions to the summit of Ben More. And that was in the 1870s, so I guess the railway companies were very early proponents of the idea of Munro bagging. So there's Ben More over there, and if I scan round up there, above the CityLink bus, you can see the upper station, which is more upper than upper, I think. And as you will see, being on the West Highland Way, there's no shortage of accommodation. There's a very discreet advert here for massage. Well, I would never believe that you'd come to Tyndrum for a massage, but I guess if you're doing the West Highland Way, there we go. I've just phoned her and she's out of action at the moment with a sore back. It's no secret that there's a gold mine in Tyndrum, and the green and white notice on the gate explains the do's and don'ts of gold panning, because as soon as people realise there was a gold mine here, people start panning in the river. And it says that the gold and the silver belongs to the Crown, which I think means the King, not the Crown pub in Wolverhampton. And here comes the Oban train. Anybody getting off? No. I've discovered that behind the waiting shelter is a water butt, complete with a little doggy bowl. which is very interesting, and it runs. In the village, you can't miss the Tyndrum Inn, where I'm going to try my luck with a bar meal. Well, I've ordered a soup. Let's see what it's like. Yeah, another celebration of the mining tradition of a place. And in the distance, you can see the Green Welly stop. Yeah, the Green Welly stop is actually very popular with motorcyclists. And sometimes on a weekend in the summer, the car park is absolutely full of motorbikers. And this is a row of miners' cottages which you can see are now holiday lets. That's life. And there's somebody doing the West Highland Way. Now this path from the station, if you come out of the station, cross the level crossing and turn right, I think it's going to take me to the remains of the tramway that used to run from the lead mine down to Tyndrum Lower station. I do like a brisk walk in the country. Yeah, it's a good path. The colours are so great, it's lovely. Autumn, fantastic. I found some remains of lead mining buildings, but it wasn't clear to me where the tramway went. I guessed that the path I followed might have been on the line of the tramway. As it was getting dark soon, I wanted to go back to the upper station to take more pictures. And there on the side of the hill is the train to Fort William and Mallaig. So I'm now walking up the single track road that takes me from the main road up to Upper Tyndrum station. See how high we are when we get there. Here we are walking in the sun now, how pleasant. Not been a bad day really, hasn't rained at all. And in the west of Scotland, if it doesn't rain, it's a fantastically good day. Thoughtful of the council to provide a grit bin. Bit of curvature, a very tight curve. This station was built by, well, the West Highland Railway became part of the North British Railway, which became part of the LNER. Look at that, the zigzaggy road or the shortcut, which are we going to do when we go back? This is definitely not step-free access, but here we go. Up and away. Oh. Tyndrum Lower, which unlike Upper Tyndrum, has step-free access. Two platforms, a typical West Highland station with the main buildings in the middle. And of course the ubiquitous Caledonian sleeper illuminated display. And there's one seat, and the office of Scott Gold. Not a bad place to have an office. How about that for a view from your office window? Not bad, eh? You get a lot of work done being inspired by that view. And the station name was changed from Tyndrum Upper to Upper Tyndrum in 1992 when radio signalling was introduced to avoid confusion with two stations on the same line with similar names, Tyndrum Upper and Tyndrum Lower. So by calling it Upper Tyndrum, that means that verbal interchanges between train crews and the signalman are less likely to be confused. Although you'll notice that the Gaelic version remained the same, Tyndrum Upper. Notice in Gaelic it is Tyndrum, hence the correct way of saying it is Tyndrum, although a lot of people say Tyndrum. And if you really want to know, Tyndrum means house on the ridge. I'm not quite sure which ridge, but there's quite a few ridges around here. The station has a lovely little signal box, no longer in use. And the altitude of the station explains why there are two stations in Tyndrum, giving it the claim to fame as the smallest settlement with two stations. And that's because the West Highland Railway needed to gain a lot of altitude to get up onto Rannoch Moor, and it's nearly 300 metres, about 285 metres above sea level. And the walk between the two stations took me about 15 minutes. But I suspect that the slope to get up to it does explain why slightly more people use Tyndrum Lower station. It also has a more frequent service, being on the line to Oban. Permanent way siding with its own leaf ground frame, and a plate layers bothy which has seen better days. Now there's a bus replacement service this weekend. It says that Rannoch and Karur cannot be served. Use the help point for information. I think if you press the help point at Rannoch, they would just say, go away.
Right, sir.
Hello, yes.